Thanks everybody for coming out. If you made it out, you deserve to have a career in comedy on a night like this. So just because I want to cause a little bit of trouble, this is called Careers in Comedy, Breaking into the Funny Business. Is there such a thing as a career in comedy?
You know, there can be, for, I feel like I have a career in comedy for months at a time. So yes, is the short way of saying that. What do you think?
I mean, y'all heard my bio. I've had every job in New York City. I could be the mayor. You don't even know. So, like, honestly, like, it is possible, but, you have to be kind of versatile and kind of jump from thing to thing.
Yeah.
And there's going to be long periods where things might not come together, but hopefully trust the process and build a nice community.
I'm someone who, for me, comedy is a wide umbrella term for the things I like to make and do, and hopefully a lot of you fall into that category. So I think, to me, you can't be like a careerist about comedy. You have to be willing to let other things in that are maybe corporate jobs and day jobs that allow you to pursue things while you kind of carve out your own category that maybe, yeah. That was a full sentence.
So what, sort of for each of you guys, what was the moment that made you say, yeah, I actually can do this and at least pay part of my rent doing it?
When I got Z-Way, when I got a TV writing job. But before that, I was reading Mindy Kaling's book. Yes, Please, I think. No, what's it called? The second one. Whatever it's called. I was reading that one, and at the very end, Why Not Me? That's what it's called. Why Not Me? At the very end, she was like, I made sure that I was confident in my ability, so that I knew whenever I submitted for a job, I was qualified for it. And that's what I made myself do. So I got good at like making sure I knew how to write a sketch, making sure I knew how to like write a pilot, so that, if I got rejected from something, I knew like I still know how to write something, I just wasn't good for this job. So that's how I knew I would make a career for myself, because I had no other option but to.
Yeah, I was doing comedy in college, and then I came to New York, and I was teaching 7th grade science, which is like doing stand-up 3 hours a day, every single day for 12-year-olds. So one day a 12-year-old, their parents ran the bar that I was doing a show at. So you know how you're not supposed to see your teachers outside of school? You're like, oh, you have legs? That's crazy. So I was doing stand-up, and then the next day at school, I thought he was about to cook me. I was like, oh my God, man, I'm about to take it from this 12-year-old. I have to teach him science, and he's about to like roast me. He's like, you were really good, Mr. Njai. And that's how I knew I made it. I was like, I got something. Like, if the youth got me, then I'm good. Yeah. And then it took a little bit of time. I had to like sit down. We were talking about this before, and be like, all right, what do I really want to do with this? Because there's so many different paths and avenues, as we were saying, to doing something in comedy. And I was like, oh, I love writing. I have a background in research and writing, so why don't I just use that sort of drive that I already have going on there? And we've all watched so much TV, and experienced the world through so much TV. This might be my lane. And then one day a sketch of mine got bought, and I was like, all right, there's something here. And I just kept going in that direction. And when that stops going, I'll find another direction.
When I compare the amount that I have been paid for the things that I wrote for comedy, like humor pieces that have been picked up, or the things I get paid for Vocabulary, the show I do, it compared to like a paycheck I get, it's so embarrassing. Like, the amount of money that I get paid for comedy is so much less right now. So I still don't know if I would say I can make a living doing comedy. But I would say when the time that those lines kind of got closest to being one line was in my most recent job. I had a freelance gig working at a food delivery kit company, and I scripted something that became a TV commercial. And that and it was like a comedy commercial. And I got to bring a lot of the stuff that I do as a humor writer or comedy writer into that ad. And so even though there were kind of clients making a lot of senior decisions and telling me what I could and couldn't put in the ad, and there was legal passes and things, I think a lot of that probably goes on still in, in a Z-Way episode, I'm hoping. And so I think that's when I realized, like, it doesn't always look like what you thought it would look like, but it can still qualify as comedy. It still makes use of the skills that you expected to make use of. And so you have to decide whether that passes muster for you. Is that enough for you? And if it doesn't, then maybe you have to decide what does. Is it going to be, no, I have to be doing stand-up. I have to be writing for a show on Showtime. So I think you decide when it's enough to be making a living or to call it a career.
Thanks. So one of the big shifts I think that's taken place over the last generation or so is a shift from you'd come out of college and then you'd apply for stuff and you'd try to get a job. Now, sort of I call it a gatekeeper culture. Mm-hmm. Now it seems like you have to make your own way. You have to make your own thing without the expectation of getting paid. And then you build up your own clout, you build up your own network. And that at some point, either you're able to self-monetize or someone then says, okay, here's a bunch of money because you're awesome. Is that accurate, or is that too reductive?
Yeah, I hate to be quoting celebrities all night, but Issa Rae said, do you guys know this quote, to network laterally? That really spoke to me, because I feel like when you try to network vertically, you just feel like you're reaching for things and you're never going to get them. Sure, you're going to meet you might meet people, but it's like, think about it. They're not going to give you a job. They're going to give their friends a job. So you have to start wherever you are at, start creating that community. So when that friend gets a job, that's how I got Z-Way. When Z-Way got her show, I had worked with her before. I'd done stand-up with her in Brooklyn before. So we had a repertoire. And so, yeah, that is how I found success. So yeah, creating your own network and creating your own stuff is how I did it. I don't know how you're gonna do it, but
Nah, community is key. I think that there's a lot of people who look up and I want to do that, and I'm like, in order to do that, you got to have these people with you. And I think that I hate hearing that sort of it's lonely at the top narrative, because it's only lonely because you didn't bring your peoples with you. That's how I always look at it. So I think that in my career, I've try to go it alone a little bit, but then also realize that I have a lot of people in my network. And we talked about this before, that we all have so many different skills. We all have the ability to tell stories in these beautiful ways. So why don't we all just pool our skills and make sure that rising tide brings all the ships up? And I think that's been the move lately for me. And I've seen a lot of, it's really embarrassing to be at a party and see someone being like, oh, they're just trying to talk to the person who's getting them up there. It's really dope to talk to just everyone at the party, be really cool. And at the end of the day, who knows? You never know. And I think it isn't an application process. If I send an application, that's not going anywhere. But if I send an application to Nancy, that might get up there somewhere. So.
Yeah, I don't even know what the question was, and I am saying +1 to the community stuff, because I feel it so strongly that I'm so passionate about this, that the people that I like to make stuff with are the people that I like to make stuff with, and I have no patience for opportunism, and I have never had an interest in stepping on other people to get ahead. And if that means that I'm still in the middle, then that's fine. And so I can't echo those sentiments enough. If you love working with people and you can just help lift each other up and not be precious with your contacts, because I guarantee everybody else already has access to the things that you think that nobody else has access to. So the best thing that you can do is just be generous and work with people who will be generous in return, because those are the people that you're going to get your jobs from.
You guys have this really nice view of the business that I had a game I played with myself, which was, at what age would my generation turn into the assholes we used to make fun of?
Yeah.
Yeah, you guys haven't hit that point yet.
I hope we never do.
Yeah.
And speaking of which, what have your encounters with the more establishment part of the business been like, and how have you navigated those?
I mean, I can speak to that. I have been ghosted so many times by, especially in the literary industry. I've had like book deals go south at the cusp of like selling them. So I think it's just important to get used to hearing no, even when you're so sure something is about to happen or go your way. Like Michelle was saying, just not only being confident in your craft, but just knowing that it's not that nothing matters, because I'm not a nihilist about it, but I think like knowing that being okay with like loving yourself and having that self-acceptance, because the industry is not going to like hold your hand through it. That's been my experience. My encounters with the industry have been, I don't want to say solely cruel, they've been positive, but especially with like getting the signature on the line, it's just been taken out of my hand at many points. And then occasionally it happens and then I exhale, but a lot of times it disappears right when it seems like it's going to happen.
I've been fortunate enough to do a lot of like Sundance sort of things, so I get to be with a lot of other creatives who kind of share my passion for the heart of storytelling. But then the money comes in and then it gets a little shaky. So I think that that's mostly where it starts getting a little bit funny for me, because I mean, so many of people, especially in our peer group, we don't got a lot of bread. So when we want to make things, we have to come up against money. And I think that everybody has a story that I think is actually very necessary to tell. We all should have that opportunity to do that. But the reality of the situation is some of these places we want to pitch, they need to turn a profit on your story. So that it turns into this weird game of like, yo, you pitch your thing and they're like, we choose you. They're like, oh, that's gross. Now I got to sell my story. Or they don't pick you. You're like, oh, my story's not good enough for you. So it's like this weird like back and forth. So you kind of, to your point, need to like be really settled in who you are. And I think that there are people and there are, different collectives that are trying to find a more humanistic view of doing that. But for right now, the MO is you got to get your project going through the system, and it's not for the faint of heart. But I think that the most important thing that I've been able to build with my friends is transparency around like rates, around like how did you get this shot, how do you get this free location, because I mean if you share all of these resources, then we all got them. And I feel like if you're like, oh, I'm gonna keep it for me, that kind of snitches on yourself. You're like, oh, that means I feel like if I give you this resource that I'm not really actually that confident in my ability to do it. Everyone has a story, so just go off and do it. And oftentimes when one door closes, truly another door will open. And if not, build another house, mad doors, open them, close them, do what you want to do.
Yeah, I think that I'm lucky enough to have not encountered a ton of assholes in this industry yet. There's still time. But I feel like for me, like sort of exactly what you guys have been talking about, like I've gotten to the frustration of the general meeting. I don't know if you guys know what those are, but it's basically a call that often leads to nothing. Well, it's when you meet basically an executive or somebody working for a network, like their director of comedy or something like that, and I mean, they've read a sample of yours and they're interested to meet you. And, I feel like in the beginning, my first couple generals, I was like, okay, I'm going to get a job tomorrow. Didn't. So I feel like you have to get used to meeting a lot of people. I think people say that generals are like, you got to play the long game, So it's like, I can't wait by the phone for ABC to call me to make the next Abbott Elementary. You know what I mean? Like I have to like start writing my own stuff, doing my own stuff. And so eventually when that call comes, I'm ready for it. Yeah.
Can I add one more thing to this, which is just, I think because the industry is so fickle, it's important not to just make what the market wants. Like it's important to know what the market wants and the appetite is, because I think that's what a lot of executives will tell you when you speak to them. They'll be like, the appetite is for this. Whether it's an agent, they'll be like, oh, you should make this. Like this is what will sell. And then you go about making that thing. And then if it doesn't sell, you're stuck with a project you never wanted to make in the first place. Yeah. So it's important to balance your time between making that, but also make the thing that's your baby, so that when somebody asks you, what do you have? You don't just have the thing that you made that you hate. You have the thing that you love and are ready to share.
Mm-hmm. And if I can add on to that too, like everything's subjective. Like I have a teaching show right now, so I'm in hell. You know what I mean? Like Abbott Elementary is doing amazing and I love it and I'm having a blast. But people are like, how do we make your show more like Abbott Elementary? That's one meeting. Another meeting is like, how do we make it less like Abbott Elementary? So like there's always gonna be a back and a forth. So, you know, ground yourself on the project that you want to do and make sure that you really are passionate about it and you know what you want to say. Like there's an intentionality that needs to come with that.
And the other important point is that most executives get fired every 6 months. So yeah, it's like it's what's is it like the Heisenberg principle that the thing is never you can never put your foot in the same stream twice.
Yeah.
You know, and the thing that the agent's telling you is what they're telling everybody else.
Yeah.
So now there are 50 pitches for Abbott Elementary.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So yeah, it's super tricky. Can we pivot a little bit? I did a series at the Comedy Cellar where the owner was like, "You can't be woke and do stand-up comedy," and we would have huge arguments about that. But speak to me about politics, comedy, stand-up, and how the two intersect. Because sometimes they work well together, sometimes they're in conflict.
Well, I'm lucky enough to work on a show that has nothing to do with politics. I feel like as a Black woman, I cannot not bring politics to what I work on. You know, I feel like showing up and having a job is a political statement, and especially like working on a show. I mean, Z-Way is such an interesting story because if you know, she got her show in 2020. Which was an interesting time for America, especially to be Black, and a lot of atonement was happening, and they were giving people shows. So I feel like it was a great time for people to listen to because Z-Way had been, if she had a YouTube series, she had sort of been doing that for years. That was just when the world was ready to hear it. And so I feel like in that writer's room, because it's based on politics, like there's always a place for talking about race, gender, class. In fact, if we're not talking about that, we're not really writing a sketch for Z-Way. So yeah, I mean, that has been the entirety of my career. So, and I feel like there's obviously an audience for it.
The show got nicer in season 2, though, a little bit.
Nicer.
But no?
I was stabbed in the back by Z-Way.
In my experience, so full disclosure, my dad's an Africana Studies professor. So like I was raised in a very academic household. I was raised around a lot of like the stuff that we've been talking about for the last few years. But I think that comedy has an important, objective of shining a light on issues, but it can't fix it. Like I think that sometimes, comedians are on the front lines of things that like specific politicians are doing. It's like you're getting really mad at this person. However, this person's taking the rights to this entire half of the country away. And I think that as a Black, Muslim, African, queer person, it's kind of difficult because every week it's something new. And sometimes it's a combo episode. They're doing a crossover between the Black and the Muslim, and now I got to deal with these things. So it's always been part of the stuff that I'm doing. And I always make jokes about how like there is no racism off season, but sometimes it feels like it because no one's talking about it. And then all of a sudden Black squares, now I'm out in the streets. And over my years of doing generals and meeting with people, I finally got to the place probably like mid 2020 where I would just ask them like, is this a white guilt meeting or are we really gonna make something happen? And that really started weeding things out. But that's just kind of the way that I approach things, not for everybody. Do not try it at home. But I think that there is absolutely a place for it. It's not as easy as going on stage and just banging on your chest about what you believe in. There really is a finesse to it. There's an art to it. There's many different lenses to telling any type of joke, and oftentimes I think a lot of the ire comes from someone speaking over someone from the community who probably should be saying it. So I think that sometimes it also comes down to like the diversity issue. Like, do you have somebody talking about the issue from their own perspective or someone picking it off of Black Twitter? You know what I mean? So there's so many different nuances to that, but there absolutely is a space for talking about I wouldn't even say political, but politicized parts of us, because I just be being me, you know what I mean? But to another person, like, oh, you're this identity so much. I'm Muslim, but to some Muslims, I'm not very Muslim. To a lot of other Muslims, I am the most Muslim person they ever met in their life. So it's all about, again, subjectivity. It's a matter of perspective.
I mean, I can speak to my most political identity is that I'm Canadian. And I did think about, my parents called me the night of the 2016 election. They're like, you can come home, you have the citizenship. One of the things that I noticed watching and writing comedy is like, I don't really, I like comedy that speaks to the politics of the moment, but I don't like clapter. And for anyone unfamiliar with clapter, it's when you're clapping because you agree, you're not clapping because you're laughing, And I think a lot of, late night monologues can occasionally go into that territory of just making commentary that's just relaying the truths of the moment to be a balm on what we're experiencing. It's not, or to just kind of make you foam at the mouth because you're angry, but it's not doing the comedy thing. It's not making you laugh in a way that expands your observations on what's happening. And so I like comedy that both like moves the needle, in that it's what Mamadou was saying. Like it's not punching down. It's not, picking from someone else's community. It's like a person who has the right to be speaking to that. But at the same time, it's not just social justice focused for the sake of being easy. It's taking risks and being punchy in a way that makes people go like, wow, I never thought about it that way. And sometimes it makes me snort soda out of my nose. Like I like laughing. I don't just like clapping. So I think that's the exciting thing about politics and comedy.
Talk to me about the stand-up scene in New York. What role does the stand-up world have in your lives and in terms of developing your careers and getting ideas? And are you guys regulars on the circuit at all?
That's funny because we literally all talked about the fact that we're not, but stand-up got me where I am.
Yeah.
Just because, so I went to school for acting, and exactly what you were talking about before, like I was just auditioning and waiting for someone to give me a job, and I hated that. But what's one thing that I can control every day and I can perform every day? That's stand-up. And so that's really how I got into it. And that's how I trained the skill of writing, trained the skill of performing, and trained the skill of rejection live. I feel like, and that's also a great way to meet people, meet your community. Like the people, you can be like, oh, I really like this performer. There was a point where, well, actually there's still a point where like people would ask me who my favorite comedians were, and they're like, people that I know, and I feel like that's what stand-up did for me. Now it takes a lot to get up there. Like I like when I first started, I had like a drive to like, I did this thing where I did 30 open mics in a month, and I did it, but I'm not that girl right now. I don't know who that girl is, quite frankly, but I did. And like, that's honestly how I got really good at stand-up. I guess getting up there, like knowing your material, knowing how to work an audience, and those are transferable skills that I still have, even though I don't use.
Yeah, in college, like I said before, I did stand up in college, and it was because I didn't get onto our improv team, which is historically white. That's a different story. But basically, I didn't get on the team, but I was like, I still want to talk about my experience, especially being all the different identities. And I went to college in Ohio, so like they needed to hear what I had to say. You know what I mean? So like, I really enjoyed doing stand-up because my degree, I went to school for neuroscience. So I was really interested in understanding how the world worked, and specifically how we interact with each other on just like a psychological, basis. I was really interested in that. So that kind of easily transitioned me into doing stand-up, because it's all about observation, seeing how people interact. And I had a blast doing it in college, but a small liberal arts school, not going to see many eyes, so I started getting on social media. Then I moved to New York, and then while I was teaching, I couldn't be on stages, and I couldn't be working on my jokes, so I would do social media. I would just be on Twitter being like, all right, you got to post at 10, because that's when they're waking up in LA. Yeah, so I was trying to think about it in that sort of way. How do I continue to get these jokes off? And then I was doing stand-up on the circuit in New York, but I think right before the pandemic, I was like, oh, great, excuse to not go outside, perfect. So I stayed home, but then I actually did stand-up again in June, and I was like, all right, I think I've done enough other things that this is now just a tool in my toolbox and not just like the main reason why I want to do this. And I think that with the advent of like TikTok and Instagram and all these different places that people can go and build their audience in a way that feels safe for them, I think that I've just enjoyed interacting with that. And as a DJ, I'll DJ people's comedy shows and I'll be at shows. So I'm still in the community around in that way, but I'm not necessarily doing jokes in that specific way. And I think even podcasts have kind of like also changed the way that people engage with stand-up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think New York has a great stand-up comedy scene. Like it's fantastic and it's so rich. You can see any kind of stand-up that you want at any given time. I personally love the stand-up scene in Brooklyn, because I live there and it's easier to get to, but just because there are I don't know. I feel like the comedy scene there is more diverse and there's more alt comedy, which tends to be a little more exciting. People are experimenting with like blending characters into comedy or like prop comedy sometimes in very exciting ways. I did a little bit of stand-up from like 2015 to 2018. Also decided that's enough for me. But I had a conversation with my friend Mike Kaplan, who's also an amazing stand-up, so good. And I think for me, it's like for him, he talked about how the doing is the thinking. Like working out your jokes on stage is part of the craft of stand-up. And I do not like taking up space in that way. Yes. I do not like the homework of it, and I don't like taking up space there. I don't mind taking up space on paper. I can do that and I can work out my thinking on paper and pitch. And that is how I figured out I wanted to be a writer. I was like, this is a very comfortable space of doing homework for me and getting rejected over and over, but the rejection of stand-up. And if you like that kind of rejection, that is great. And I'm not saying that to be facetious. Like, it's great to know if you like working that muscle out on stage, then stand-up might be a great outlet to figure that out. But if you like working on paper, writer.
Also, don't want to discourage anyone from doing stand-up.
Yeah.
Like, when I did do it,
Yeah.
I did like it sometimes. But like, and also like we've been talking about rejection a lot. Like that is the nature of stand-up, but you will get used to it. It won't always hurt as much once you get used to it. So like, I hope we're not discouraging you guys from getting into stand-up, because like I said, like I do owe my career right now to stand-up, and I feel like, you know what stand-up also does? It helps you get to a joke quickly. Like it helps you it helps you write, I think. And so I do think that it is, like you were saying, a tool in your toolbox. So even though I don't do it now, I still rely on those tools.
Even as a DJ, they give me a microphone, that's a problem. So like, I be having a blast on the mic. Like, it's still very fun. It's something I like doing. And I think that sometimes, even if I'm like in my writing process, for me, sometimes it's scripts, sometimes it's long form, an essay. Sometimes it's like, oh, this happened in the news. I'd like to write something, but it's going to be for me. But sometimes it is just writing stand-up jokes, because to your point, it is getting to a joke quickly. And if you're writing a script, you're going to want to get to the dialogue points. You want to get to those jokes. So like, it will absolutely make you a crisper comedian.
Yeah, and I would argue if you don't like taking up space in public, try stand-up, because you might be genius. Some of the people who are like weird on stage are my favorite people to watch.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, really successful stand-ups are often really perverse people.
Yeah.
Weirdos. And also there's like people that become addicted to bombing in stand-up.
Yes.
Which is like psychologically really interesting. Mabara, you touched on this a little bit. How has COVID changed the game in general? It seems like it's pushed almost all of it to social media, which is, I don't know, is that good, bad, terrifying?
I remember in 2020 when lockdown was first happening and everyone was like, okay, how are we going to adjust and, still perform? And so a lot of Zoom shows happened. And then I remember like me and my friends were like, okay, like we used to host a live show. So we're like, I guess let's do this show. Like, let's film it and put it on Instagram. It wasn't our thing. It didn't work. So I think that for me, it's forced COVID and being online has forced me to figure out what my lane is, because my lane unfortunately is not TikTok. It's not, I'm not great at tweeting. I'm, so I feel like, and I still have a career, so I don't think that if that's not your thing, that is okay. Like, you don't have to, make character videos all the time if that's not you. But if that is you, awesome. You can get a lot of followers and get a show that way. But if it's not you, it's not the end of the world, I think.
Oh, absolutely not. Like, I don't have the ligaments for TikTok. So, like, I know that's just not going to happen for me. But my friend Joey absolutely does. And sometimes it will just be bouncing idea. I'm like, yo, I have an idea for a script. Does this sound crazy? And we'll talk about it that way. He's like, yo, I have this idea for a TikTok. Is it dumb? I'm like, absolutely. You should still do it. So, there is a way to collaborate in that sort of way. And for me, 2 of my first narrative writers' rooms were over Zoom. So like it came from me doing my own thing and like writing newsletters or like touching up different scripts and sending them out. So like my comedy transferred right back into like I need to go back to the page and sharing it with people. And also like a lot of my therapeutic practice, like through therapy, my therapist read me by reading my actual scripts. So like I learned that I was writing certain things and I wasn't writing other things, and I was like, oh cool, well, maybe if I'm more vulnerable in this way. And those little things helped me open up a door to get a job and to have a conversation about certain things in the mental health space. So it honestly, there really is no one size fits all to anything ever, I feel like. But like specifically in comedy, it's such a subjective world where there's some people who, to be completely honest, are not my thing, but I'm not going to knock your hustle because you are somebody's thing. So don't silence yourself or think that this is not, or like I have to do this, otherwise I'm not going to get on, because it's just not true at this stage in the game. I think before you might have had to be a club comic, you might have had to like, do improv or be in the sketch circuit or be rich. But now, like literally the barrier to entry, it's like down. Just go do it and build with your friends laterally, as Michelle was saying.
It also seems
Issa
important.
said.
It also seems important to be really good.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I think if you're sort of mediocre and you're doing your own thing, you could be doing that for a while.
Yeah.
That's so true. And like, find the thing that you are good at and like flourish that. Like that, I found that my thing is sketch. So like I like treated sketch like my full-time job, even when I had another full-time job. So yeah, I realized improv wasn't my thing.
I feel you.
I did like stand-up. Improv's fun, by the way, but I'm not good at it. Like I already said about stand-up, like, it helped me write, but like sketch, that was like, I like this and I'm good at it. So that's what I'm going to keep doing. So yeah, to your point, exactly. You should be good at the thing and if you're not, make yourself good at the thing.
As possible. So Michelle, you've a flagship show for Showtime, flagship show for HBO. How are they different? How's the experience different?
Oh, wow. Very different. So,
One has money.
guess which one? Okay. Z-Way was very different because for a number of reasons. It was my first TV writing job. So, I walked into the room not knowing at all what to expect. And I was like that for a good 4 weeks. But it was cool because we were building that show from the ground up. So Z-Way is like very receptive. It's a super collaborative room. So it's like, and Z-Way, like she knew generally what she wanted the show to be, but like we were still sort of figuring it out together. So she'd be like, you're gonna be Harriet Tubman? That sounds stupid, but go write it. And so it ended up on the show. So like I feel like that's how a lot of things happen in Z-Way because it was in its early stages. And I feel like in season 2, we just sort of like, now we figure out what the voice is, like what Z-Way's voice is, etc. Whereas a Black Lady Sketch Show, I came in on the 3rd season. The show already had its voice. And so basically I was just fitting into a format that had already been created, which was also cool. Like I feel like I became a better sketch writer writing on that show. That show, the pitch processes were very different. Like Z-Way, you could sort of walk in with a general idea, you could figure it out together. Whereas a Black Lady Sketch Show, you had to have your pitch fully complete. And like, it was also different because even though both of these shows deal with race, Z-Way, white people exist in that world. In fact, they're the target of a lot of that world. Whereas a Black Lady Sketch Show, it's the world, white people don't exist. So it was very different, you know, dealing with racial issues in both of those with those different parameters. But like I said, I learned a lot in both of those rooms, and yeah, it was a great experience.
Any anecdotes about the Karen sketch? Sketch is not the right word.
The field piece.
Field piece.
I feel like I wasn't there because of COVID. Unfortunately, we didn't get to see it filmed, but I do remember. I think Jordan Mendoza wrote that field piece, and I think that we were gonna end it by asking who would get Karen tattooed on themselves, but I guess that was too far. But I remember like I think it was we all laughed so much when we were like, we're gonna have them chant at the end, "I'm Karen and I'm proud," and I remember that. We were all like, no one's going to actually do that. And yet they did. And I feel like that was so fun with the field pieces to see like what Z-Way could get people to do. And apparently it is a lot.
Cool. And Mamadou, just to speak more to your experience. So you get out of college from some place that may or may not be Oberlin. And
It's
no?
not, but close.
Close, okay. And you decided to become a teacher? And when you decided to become a teacher, did you already know that you maybe wanted to enter the comedy business, or were you like, maybe I want to be a teacher?
My dad's a professor, so I feel like I was just following my dad's footsteps in a little bit. But also I had a degree in neuroscience that I just kind of pump faked. I was like, all right, now I'm not doing this no more. So I was like, I kind of would like to still use this and give back to the community in a certain way. So I was teaching 7th grade science in Bed-Stuy. So very tough job, mostly because teaching, even though, you know, you kind of understand, like, I got to give this information to these kids. It's not just that. There's so many other parts of it. But I think that it gave me this sort of like just perspective on like what young people think is interesting, but also like there's just so much that we as adults, like in school, this is what's supposed to be forming us, and like you have to do it right. So I was doing that, but then at the end of the shift, I was like, I gotta go uptown. I gotta go to this mic. I gotta go stand up New York. So that was kind of the way for 2 years.
So you're not going back?
Huh? To
You're not going back?
to teaching?
Yeah.
Oh, I would go back.
You would go back?
Oh, it's never the kids, it's the teachers. It's, I mean, you've seen Abbott Elementary, so like basically.
That's exactly the
no,
truth.
It's exactly, it's a documentary. So, no, I loved my students. I think it's very difficult because, you know, the way the education system's set up, I don't have to get into it, but it's kind of bad. And that was the hard part, but it was never the students. I loved my students. Yeah.
Did you get a lot of material from teaching?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Like, and it was nice because, you know, they're young kids who like basketball, and like there's also some kids like Harry Potter, but then there's also like, you know, especially in middle school, some people are like developmentally still like elementary kids, and there's some people who have deeper voices than me. So I'm like, all right, cool. Like, and there's plenty of jokes, and it was all Black boys, so that's also its own complete other stratosphere.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And Sam, and then we'll go to Q&A after that. So I want to hear more about vocabulary, also your fixation on puns.
Okay, it's not my fixation, it's everyone else's fixation on my talent for it. I just want to clarify that.
So you have certain shame around it? Or?
I think I do. Yes, I do. I'll admit that. But Vocabulary is a monthly variety show for language lovers that I host on Lower East Side at Caveat, which is a great venue for intellectual nightlife. If anybody feels like that's me, it's your home. I think they recently rebranded as like Comedy for Nerds, which I don't know that everybody thinks of themselves as nerds. I've never self-identified as a nerd, so I don't know. I like intellectual nightlife. Anyway, hating the sound of my voice right now. So yeah, it's a show where we basically take a theme every month and we unpack it through the lens of language. So like this month is words nightmares. So we're doing like spooky stories about, you know, words you've read but never pronounced, or scare quotes told as an Edgar Allan Poe poem, or Orson Welles style War of the Worlds, but you know, about language. So it's like that. Yeah.
Cool. And how long have you been doing it for?
We've been doing it for, I think, 3 years now.
Wow.
And it started by a group of us who met doing competitive puns. And I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, sounds like you love puns. But we actually all came together doing competitive punning, but we found that we all kind of had ambitions beyond doing puns because respectively we were, comedy writers, journalists, filmmakers, and we said, Punderdome, which is the name of this event, is great, but we'd like another outlet to be able to kind of do something a little more akin to comedy that pays us a little. And so that's how Vocabularé was born and Caveat went for it. So, yeah.
Cool. Do you blame millennial fast casual restaurants for the pun surge?
I should blame them for killing the pun surge. No, I blame millennials for killing the pun surge. I don't know. What are the fast casual restaurants?
Everyone. I mean,
Yeah?
just kale pun after kale pun.
Oh
I mean,
my
I like
God.
a good food pun personally.
Yeah, I've written so many of them you've gotten in your email inbox. So I don't know if I'm part of the problem. is really the problem.
But also part of the solution.
Yes. Yeah.
So I appreciate that.
Thank you.
So we're going to go to questions from the audience. Anybody? Please line up behind the mic.
Hi, Christina Strack, Titan, self-declared word nerd. I need to choose whether I'm going to use a commercial, theatrical, or comedic headshot by Thursday at midnight. How do you choose when it's appropriate, to go full-blown comedic or no, I should be solemn? How do you make that decision?
Is it for a comedy job?
Yeah.
I think you should submit a comedy headshot. That's what I would do.
It's funny. Okay.
I agree.
Yeah, I would do that. Go for what the job description
for the
seems
look.
to suggest. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, copy that. Thank you.
That was easy.
Hello, my name is Ariana, and I'm a senior attending Rutgers University. My question is, I wanted to know, what did you do to learn the business aspect of comedy?
That's an excellent question.
Only because it doesn't matter sometimes how talented you are.
Yeah.
I just, in my 21 years of life, it's more so about how you market yourself and how you know how to sell yourself, what gets you through the door. So what did you, and it's also a business, and people forget about that because you were talking about earlier. They have to profit off of your work. So what did you learn to do? What did you do to learn the business aspect of your craft?
I feel like I'm still learning it, to be honest. Like, I feel like I'm still in meetings being like, wow. Like, I feel like, I think that I'm learning. Like, the other day I was in a general meeting, and the guy, he was talking about, I was like not pitching, but I was like telling him an idea for a pilot that I had. And he was like, oh yeah, that's a good idea. But he was trying to help me develop the idea. But he was like, that doesn't really sound like something executives would go for right now. So I feel like exactly what you said, things do have to sell, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So I think that the best way to figure that out is to know what sells. Like right now, like you were saying, like Abbott, like those are the things that I feel like people are interested in. And so I don't think that you should like try to recreate the next Abbott, but I think that like you can try to find your voice that also has similar narratives that helps you sell something. What do you guys think?
I mean, I think it's like what you just said. At least you ask the question, because at the end of the day, I mean, I think I'm not wilding out for saying this, but like people don't talk about money. There's no transparency about wages, about contracts, stuff like that. I think the most important thing is to ask questions and don't be afraid, because a lot of this stuff ends up getting you Wesley Snipes. Now you in jail for tax evasion. But like you have to not be afraid to talk about it. And also at the end of the day, the system should be, and I know it isn't, and I'm being realistic, but also optimistic, that a rising tide raises all ships. So I feel like asking questions about it. And to your point, I'm still figuring it out. Like learning about like the difference between like marketing for me is just being myself. I have to just be myself. Authenticity sells, because one day you faking it till you make it, then you make it, and then you're like, oh damn, I don't know who I am, and that's not where you want to be. But the business side of it, when it comes to money and stuff, there just needs to be a mass sort of conversation about like transparency around rates, around union rates, guild rates, and non-union jobs. There's a lot to go for here, but I would say just continue asking questions on every job. And when you're building your own contracts and stuff like that, you start learning words like kill fee. So they might bring you in, and then they'll be like, we're not doing it anymore. It's like, well, you still owe me that $200 though. So it's little things like that that keep you going, because if you're trying to eat off of this, like there's plenty of people who are trying to take that food right back out your mouth. So just keep asking questions and don't be afraid to.
Okay, thank you.
I had one more thing, which is read everything, know everything. Read all the trades. This may seem really boring, but all the guilds in the entertainment business have huge amounts of information, and understanding what your rights are as how you become a guild member, what guild membership brings you, how the business works, like what the role of studios is, agencies, like just being able to have that at your fingertips will just help you hugely.
I think on that point, like, find someone that you know who's in the business, and like you can run things by them. So like I remember my first job, like I was like, is this the amount of money that you're supposed to get for this job? They're like, nah, that's actually really low. So like, find someone who's in the business and you can ask them questions until you finally learn it yourself. Also, that's what agents and managers are supposed to do, but I do agree that like you should know it yourself.
Yeah, and there's also a point which I find is tricky, and I face this as well. There's a point where like I'm going to take crap money because I know this is a really good project that I want to do.
Yeah.
It's not that commercial, like, so probably I'm not going to make more money. So it's sort of figuring out where you have leverage, where you don't have leverage, and sort of knowing that is the key, because sometimes you can go too far the other way.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for sharing your little tidbits of wisdom with us. I'm Jennifer. I'm a recent dual MBA graduate from Pace University. My question is a dinner question. So, like, pretend we're all eating here. So, what is your highest high of comedy and your lowest low, like when you bombed?
Oh my God.
Happy memories.
Okay, I'll be really honest right now. I'm in my lowest low. Oh, I should start with my highest high, I guess. No, it's okay, but that's like this business. Like right now, I don't have a job and I don't know what my next job is going to be. And so I talk about this in therapy often.
For real.
But my therapist was like, Michelle, this is the career you chose. You have to figure out how to adjust to not knowing when you will have that next job. So it's been a lot of like me trying to fill my time, because you could just watch TV all day, which yes, I did that today. But like you also could be developing your own stuff. Like it takes a lot of self drive to be in this business. And so that is what I'm learning right now. So yeah, that is the lowest low. And then the highest high is when I got nominated for an Emmy.
Let's go.
Yeah.
Thank you. Sure. All right. Well, yeah. I feel like one of my highest highs was when I finished the first draft of a screenplay that was like the longest thing I'd ever written, and the funny thing is nobody bought it. Like I didn't try to sell it yet, but I just mean that it was something that like I didn't think I was capable of, was writing long form comedy. I'd only ever written sketches. I'd only ever, had little things picked up, and I just being able to like drive myself to do something I didn't think I was capable of and dive into the unknown. I was like on a cloud 9. And then I'll just say for a nice contrast, the lowest low was when I got back from a writer's residency and was incapable of finishing a second draft, and realized like that it's not enough like to just coast on this like good feeling. I realized that when I took it all apart, I didn't know how to put the pieces back together again, and I like went through a very hard depression that it took me a while to climb out of. So take the lesson of that.
Yeah. Second draft. Whew, boy.
Still going.
Yeah. Let's see. Highest high. I worked on season 2 of Space Force, So I got to meet Steve Carell, and that shit was dope.
Yeah.
I was like, I can't even lie to you. I was just like, yo, you were in Get Smart and The Office. I was like, I was listing his IMDb as if he wasn't there. So
I'm obsessed that
like,
you went with Get Smart first.
oh yeah, I mean, because my parents are immigrants, so like they're never gonna remember the one that you're famous for. They're like, oh yeah, you were like you were in the GIF on FunnyJunk.com. You're like, oh god. But yeah, it was really cool, and it was just cool to interact with him. And then he sent me a nice at the end of the show, and I ended up getting canceled. He sent me an email and was just very kind about my writing skills, and that I was like, nah, stop it, not, don't give me a big head. The worst moment, and this is gonna get tastefully dark, but I'm here, so let's all ground ourselves for this. A man pulled a knife out on me at a comedy show. And I was DJing, and this happened earlier this year. And I was DJing, and then I was like, surely if I stop playing this Bad Bunny song, people will come to my rescue. For 11 minutes, I'm standing at knife point, and I'm like, oh, nah, you got to figure out a way out of this. And I basically was like, hey, let's go outside. And it worked. It was the most Daffy Duck thing I've ever done in my entire life. But it was just like, maybe I shouldn't be out in the streets like this. That was like the lowest moment that I feel like I've had. Because I was just like, man, you realize that I love comedians. I love them to death. But like, in a world of ha-has and hee-hees, you need people with hands. And none of them were that. So that's where I was. That was my lowest moment.
Thank you guys so much for your vulnerability and being honest.
Hi, my name is Dora. I graduated Macaulay Hunter this past August, and I want to become an attorney while also pursuing comedy. So I want to know, how do you balance your kind of public professional image as maybe a teacher or in a corporate job with your more laid back, daring comedy image?
Wow, I really respect the fact that you want to have an income.
She like money.
Right. I that was my life until 2020. So you really have to stay like committed. So I had a day job. I used to be a data collections manager at a I don't even remember what it was, but I used to work there. It was my 9-to-5 job, and then before that I used to nanny all day, and then I basically just forced myself on weekends and after work to either go to a mic or like on Saturdays I would spend the entire day writing. And when I said I treated it like a job, I was like, I need to be here by 9 and I leave at 5. So yeah, it's definitely possible to do both. In fact, I'm not a starving artist kind of person. Like, I don't think that you have to be a starving artist. Like, I think that you can do what you have to do. So like, if that means that you have to have a job in the day and then do your passion at night, I do think that that's possible. So yeah, you just have to really carve out time and be committed at time. Like, there's so many nights I'm like, I don't feel like going to this mic. It's raining. It's in Bushwick. I'm like here, but I'm like, this is what I ultimately want to do. So I'm going to get on this train and do it. Yeah.
It's interesting because I think my jobs have always lended to a little bit of comedy. Like, to teach 12-year-olds, you got to have a little bit of a sense of humor. Like, you got to. And I've also worked for a lot of social justice organizations as a creative consultant. So a lot of what I do is blending this very dark, almost fatalistic information with like humor. So like, rather than like talk about Black maternal death rates, I was like, all right, let's make a joke about a drug that a doctor would prescribe a Black woman if they're not paying attention to her pain, called like It Be Like That Sometimes. And I was like, there's a way into that it's always been a balance between the reality of the worlds that we live in and also like the comedy side of it. And I think for me, I stopped teaching also because I don't want to wear a button down every single day and teach kids, because the reality of the situation is teaching kids in Bed-Stuy, they're living an experience that a lot of their teachers may not have also lived. So being able to like, come down, wear a t-shirt, come in and just like have a conversation with them. Those were like the moments that I was like, this is when I made the most impact. I didn't need to be dressed up, or I didn't need to like hold on to this. These are all parts of who I am. And once I told the principal, after he told me, why are you wearing a button down? He was just like, oh, I totally get it. But I still like, I'm not coming back next year. So it's still, I think the balance is something that for me, I don't really have it. I feel like this is going to sound so gas. Like Iron Man, at the end of Iron Man, like I am Iron Man. Like I'm not going to hide my identity. I like any job, like you're going to get how I feel about things. And ultimately, I'm hoping that's why you hired me, to be my full self and not the pieces that you want just for your show.
My situation is funny because I'm an O1 alien of extraordinary ability, according to the Department of Homeland Security, which means that I can only take jobs that are officially within the designation of writer and performer in the comedy category, which is very funny because it means every time I take a job, I have to check with my immigration attorney, is this technically comedy writing? And she's like, yes, writing ads while using your comedy chops, you know. So I think to what Mamadou was saying, like I like I believe in the philosophy of like using your transferable skills of comedy in your career and allowing that to be part of your comedy career. I also am not a person who believes that you have to be a starving artist in order to do what you do. Like I like actually having the balance. I like financial security even. And I enjoy, and I've always wanted to figure out what is my comedy and how is it something that nobody else is doing. And that's what I love about Vocabaret. It's what I love about, like, okay, despite what I've said before, it's why I love that I have been paid to make puns on occasion. Like, it's that I'm technically doing something that nobody else is doing as a comedian. And some of the people that I admire most are not traditional stand-ups. They're people who are like, have these hybrid titles. So love that you're trying to be both an attorney and comedian, and maybe there will be like some new title or category that is both of those things.
Right, next, I know we're short on time, so we'll do quick questions, quick
I'll
answers.
keep it
Oh,
short.
yes.
I'll shorten it. Hi, I'm Jenna, and I
Get rid of the vowels and you're good.
I graduated from Macaulay, Brooklyn in June. And my question is, do you think right now that audiences are gravitating towards more like character-driven comedy over premise-driven comedy? Because I feel like a lot of my ideas, I want to be a TV writer. I forgot that part because I was short on time. Well, now it takes longer. Ben, I feel like a lot of my ideas are kind of more based around the premise first, but I feel like a lot of the successful shows right now are really more character driven. So do you think there's a place for like more high concept comedy right now?
I have not sold a show, so I don't know what is selling. But I do know that in a meeting that I was in the other day, they were saying that he said something interesting that was like, he's like, Insecure would not be successful right now. And I was like, huh. And I do think that is true, because I feel like a lot of comedies, it's like, it can't just be comedy right now. It has to be comedy and like something else, like Search Party. It's a comedy and also like a murder mystery, you know? So it's like, I think that's what that's what's selling right now. It's like, yes, hard jokes, etc., but also what else is this outside of a comedy? So what does that be? Premise? I don't know.
Genre.
Like, yeah.
There's like, I think that's it. It's like, there's what is the thing that your show does that isn't just like a straight up sitcom or something that we've already seen before. And it gets harder and harder every year because there's a lot of content. So I think that do not lean away from leaning into character, definitely, because that is what, I mean, that even if it's not your show, it's going to be what they're looking for. It's like people who can write strong character.
Doesn't need to be my show. It just needs to be a show.
Yeah. Who you telling? Me too, dog.
Hey, my name is Jake Mooney, a junior at Brooklyn. I love Z-Way, particularly the Jane Krakowski Gazzo sketch.
Oh my God, I read that.
Oh, yeah, you got me. You just get me. My question is there a piece of comedy, whether it be a comedian, a movie, or a show that has like really like impacted you? It's like, for me, it's BoJack Horseman. That show made me. And I'm curious if like, as you guys as comedians found any piece of media or person that you really influenced you and like redefined kind of what comedy could be.
That's so hard. No.
I have a bunch of names for you right now. I like Taika Waititi. I really do enjoy what Taika has been able to do. I enjoy, of course, Donald Glover in Atlanta. I've enjoyed that. Michaela Cole, to go from chewing gum to I May Destroy You. I love the versatility there and the ability to like take your pain and make it into art in a way that is very much her. I think that my favorite piece of content in the world is Community by Dan Harmon, mostly because he was able to tell a linear story with these characters, but dipped into all these genres and these like pop culture things. Some people say that's lazy, but I think it's very endearing. And I'm doing a rewatch of it currently because I'm like, I don't know how you did this. I'd love to learn the magic tricks.
Okay, I'll just throw in two very far away from each other things. One, Tim Robinson's. I think you should leave. I can't say that I write like that now because my writing, but that impacted me deeply as just like what comedy could be. I think that's so inspirational. And then anybody who is thinking of writing a wordplay should read a book by Susan Stewart called Nonsense. It's the most niche reference I've ever made, but it's an amazing book about how to make nonsense. Also, John Barth, not technically, it's a fiction writer, but he's a metafiction writer. Thank you. No one's going to do that, but it's great writers that did influence me as a comedy writer.
I'd say my influences are John Early and Keeper Land. I think that they like they are just like my sense of comedy, where they like make fun of the fact that we're doing comedy, and I think that that's so funny to have that like sort of third eye that this is all insane. And then I've already said this, Search Party. I based my pilot off of that. So yeah.
Thank you so much. Z-Way Season 3 Emmy sweep.
So I do have to be brief.
Yeah.
I see there are so many people here. So, but I'm actually a comedy journalist. These days I just blog. I don't even know if this is the right forum to pose this question, but I will anyway. Do you guys worry about like getting sued? Maybe try to understand some of the law around defamation, because as you know, America is the most litigious society in the world. I mean, to make jokes about people, sometimes offensively, is a recipe for getting yourself sued. So, I mean, if you're trying to perhaps educate up-and-comers about maybe considering a career in comedy, it might be one of the things to like, yeah. So I'm just wondering if you guys ever wonder about maybe possibly getting sued.
I worry more about getting canceled. I don't think I'm big enough to get sued. I don't think anyone's looking at like what I'm saying, but I'm lucky enough that I wrote for 2 shows where like there's literally a legal team. So like if we're like, oh, are we allowed to say this? Are we allowed to say this? So so I'm not, HBO is.
Exactly.
That's fair.
My friend did get sued by Listerine because he decided to invent a product.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
Listerine.
he invented Listerine, and they sued him for legal action. And I don't know if that ever got resolved. But like, so yeah, I'm not afraid of that. But I have friends who have been sued. I think fair use is a pretty wide umbrella, though, and I'm not in the business of like punching
Not
down
as much
deeply
as
enough that I worry
defamation.
about it.
Defamation is like,
Yeah.
I blog about this,
Oh,
and defamation
yeah.
is like, you know.
Oh, I mean, not fair use.
First Amendment
Parody.
issue.
Parody
law.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
All right, thank you.
My exit strategy is to go back to West Africa. They're not gonna follow me there. Like, come find me. So.
Thank you. Hi, Mamadou. How are you? Yay. Okay, great. All right. So my questions would be very self-centered. Why not? I'm a Black woman in this society, speaking truth to power, and you know, the shit show that comes to me. So I'm trying to figure out where I think it's not me. I think it's the world and like how I fit in or how people perceive what I do. I do avant-garde, satirical performance art that is character driven to end racism. So in the theater world, I'm accepted, but then it's like, whoa. In the comedy world, it's like, whoa, because I'm improvising as well and interacting with the audience. So what are the next steps you think I should take? It's called Black Issues. It's been at Joe's Pub. It's been all kinds of different places. Mm-hmm.
Oh wow.
Yeah, Brooklyn Museum. Yes. So I do the museum world. I do the Comedy World. I do Caveat. So it's like it's very unconventional. It's not punchline like normal.
What is your goal?
My goal is to be is very much like Z-Way, because I've been following Z-Way for years. Z-Way is probably the closest
I was gonna say it sounds
thing,
like that.
yeah, closest thing to what I do. And I satirize Anna Wintour because why not? So cue the lawsuit.
I would say from a business point, see if you could. Have you invited like industry people to your shows?
Mhm.
Okay, and then I would say try to film it.
Yep, I have it filmed. Yep,
And then is it on the internet?
I'm in the process of editing it now.
I think that might be the next move. That's what I would do.
No, 100% agree. I mean, not to be a combat stand, we've been like trashing stand up, but like, but they really do it. We're like, dog, you're at the Brooklyn Museum, keep doing that.
I was
Like,
gonna say.
you don't get to see it. It's like when Beyonce did the music video at the Louvre. Like,
Yeah.
like keep doing that sort of thing. And I think that packaging that in a way where like all the things that you want to do, the next few episodes, if you were going to make more of it, and then just those things in comedy where they're like, all right, what's the tone? What shows is it like? What isn't it like? Which is what I love saying. Like, what isn't this? I think that I like to write things and be like, wow, this is original, and then I watch a TV show, I'm like, oh, this is just this show but me. So I think that finding comps that like the industry would be like, this is like Abbott Elementary mixed with an Emmy, and I want that. So I would say packaging it in that sort of way and like making it digestible. So if, it's like an elevator pitch, put in someone's inbox, 5 pages, they know what's going on, and then a link to it and embedded in there.
Okay, thank you. I'll keep doing it in unconventional spaces. Stay tuned.
Okay, you're awesome, by the way. You're awesome. Okay. My name's Morgan. I'm a 19-year-old Boston girl, and I go to Pace University. I'm a freshman, so I'm real young. But I have always been told, like, I'm funny. So, like, during COVID, I started writing. Instead of journaling, I started writing jokes. It was very therapeutic to me. So I have all this material, and like I just don't know how to define myself, get my foot in the door. I want to get behind a mic, I love it, but I don't know how to just like make my get up there and like really do it, because I really do want to start off with stand up, as you guys said. Like that's how you get your foot in the door, kind of get to know the business, and especially since I do have to do the rest of college. So yeah.
I would go if you can. You live here, right?
I do now.
Oh, amazing. I would go to, like, I know, again, yeah, we have been trashing some stand-up, but like there are really supportive open mics. They're not like all, bad. Like there are really supportive mics where people, you get 3 minutes to try your material. So find just work on 3 minutes and then, or explore like different jokes and then just keep doing them over and over and over again and find if you like it, find what you like and just tighten it up. And there's so many places to try doing that for free, and they're not all bars. There's a lot of like all ages venues, and there's lots of places to try that here.
I mean, honestly, yeah, just do it. I mean, like, you like the mic, you're on a mic. I don't know why you're not taking 3 minutes to do jokes right now, but I'm just.
You guys want it now?
But you know what I mean? Like, just do it. Not to steal from Nike lawsuit, but yeah, I say just do it. If you're writing, just keep going, doing that, and ultimately, you're 19. Like, your voice is going to continue to develop, and hopefully, and I think you will, learn so many new things at Pace University. This is an ad, and you will be able to incorporate that.
An expensive ad.
An expensive ad.
Hi, I'm Fiona, Macaulay Queens graduate, currently unemployed and an internet clown, I guess. I guess my question is really simple. Because all of you have backgrounds in writing, how did you learn to write scripts? Specifically, I guess, comedy scripts, but scripts in general. Anything you can answer to.
I learned by doing it. I had never written a pilot before, but my agent said you have to have a pilot. So I literally read scripts and I looked at shows that I liked, and I just literally put hand to laptop.
Yes. It's all on the internet. Like, it all is. If you go, there's like different databases of pilots from different years up to like probably like even last year's pilot season. you can see how people write, and if you're like, oh, I want to do a Fleabag type thing, you can see how to even insert that type of like fourth wall break into your scripts. Also, YouTube, Studio Binder, lessons from the screenplay. There's lots of different places you can go and look, and they'll give you that sort of information on like, oh, this is how they do this specific thing, or this is how they do this sort of twist. So it's all online, and it is a trial and error. And again, everything is subjective. Just write you.
Yeah.
I would write your own one if you're a clown, or like you do shows. I would write your own one-person show.
I'm not a clown.
Oh, okay.
I should have clarified. I'm
sorry. Sorry. I took you.
I'm on TikTok, so I just feel like that's clownish.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah. No. So I'm doing a lot of that where I'm like reading scripts. I guess I'm just asking, like, when you read scripts, you know, do you like take away like some like structure? Like, how do you get an idea of structure?
I think you should read. There's books like How to Write a Pilot.
Yeah.
I think because that was what I didn't know too. I was like, what is an act? Like, so like, yeah, get like more. You can find technical things, and then you can read scripts for an example of what that looks like.
Right. Yeah.
Cool. I think we only have time for one more question, but I think you guys will hang around if other people.
Yeah, sure.
Okay,
Thank you
cool.
guys
So,
very much.
You can talk to the panelists afterwards. Make this a good one.
All right.
Change my life fundamentally.
All right. This will probably not do that. Gotta be honest. My name's Enrique. Also Macaulay Queens grad, but a year later. So I got an in-person graduation. Not to rub it in, but so my issue is I just like too many things, and I feel like I had just terminal media brain, where just like all the shows I've ever watched, all the games is just constantly running through my head. And so I have the issue of like not knowing what to focus on in terms of like comedic hobbies. So I guess like any advice you have for honing in on either one. I know you have all like jumped around various parts, but it's like I'm having trouble find one thing I want to like hone in on to, I guess, launch my comedic chops, if you will, or career.
I don't think you have to find one thing. Like, I think if you genuinely enjoy multiple things, like, even though I wasn't necessarily good at improv, I still enjoyed it. So before the pandemic, I had a sketch team, I had an improv team, and I did stand-up. I literally did all three of them. And then, like, eventually I was like, oh, my sketch team is taking precedent right now because, like, we have a live show. So that's where I put my effort into. But I do think that you don't have to choose a lane. But I think that it will sort of naturally choose itself.
Yeah, I agree with Michelle. I feel like what you find, especially as you come out of college, is that a lot of people, and that's a great thing about college, is it fosters communities. And a lot of people are like, hey, let's form this accountability group. Hey, let's form this sketch team. Let's form this improv team. And then over time, you're like, I don't really want to meet with these people anymore because I just, you know, either the group dynamics aren't working or another group is taking precedent, or you don't like writing and you just want to do the improv thing. So it really it works itself out.
It's all trial and error from every level. It's like you try it, it works out. You take it to your showrunner, you take it to Z-Way. Maybe she doesn't like it, you got to go back. It's like you're always going to be doing trial and error. I'm a person who likes having the Infinity Stones. Like, I have a feature, I have a drama, I'm like, that West African immigrant hustle mentality just locked in. And I'm like, I want to have one of each of these things. But I do know that I don't necessarily want to work on a drama, but I'm just like, just to be prepared for it for the industry, because like I was saying earlier to somebody, character is really, really important. So then if I'm getting notes about like, I don't understand this character, I'm like, all right, I need to like grind on character, or this wasn't as sharp as another script. Oh, I got to work on that. So just, it will come to you. And whether you want to be in front of the camera or behind the camera, just continue to do what you go in the direction that makes you feel like you're feeling joy and you want to keep doing it. And that could be stand-up, that could be online videos, and it could be just like sending in some jokes to a website, or, you know, writing for like a Vulture or a McSweeney's. So just experiment.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Future EGOT City in here. So thank you guys. This was great. Really, really enlightening and great questions. So thank you guys.